Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. We're in that kind of awkward transitional period where it's like barely 2025 but almost 2026, and I thought this would be a good time to sit down and talk about my goals for the coming year. I really want to challenge myself a little bit in 2026 because I want to move away from doing as much doom scrolling as I've been doing in 2025. I want to spend my time more wisely on the things I actually want to do, like reading and playing video games and crafting and spending time with my friends and family. So I want to challenge myself to do more of those things and a lot less looking at social media. And I also want to challenge myself to branch out a little bit in terms of my reading and try some genres and formats that I don't typically read. So to that end, I've put together a list of goals that I think are going to help me achieve that. And I've broken them out into a couple of categories. So I have some goals based on the kind of quantity and quality of the books I want to read in 2026. I have some goals about bringing down my own to TBR, things that I think are going to help me reduce the growth of my TBR. And then I have a few goals for my kind of content creation stuff, so my YouTube and Twitch. And I think we'll start with those reading goals just because I always start with my, how many books do I want to read this year number. Typically, I've done 36 in the past, but I want to challenge myself a little bit more in 2026, as I've already said. So I'm going to do 52, which is just one book a week, which I still think is very manageable. And I'm hoping that that'll give me a little extra motivation to read consistently. To reach that number of books, I'm also hoping to establish a new reading habit. And I want to borrow something from this challenge I've been seeing around lately that's the 75 Days Booked. I can't remember the name of the creator off the top of my head, but I'll put their name on the screen. But they created this thing that's based on 75 hard or 75 days hard, which is like a workout challenge thing. And the goal of 75 days booked is to establish a consistent reading habit and engage with your media more critically, which I think is a really great kind of challenge to have. And I don't want to adapt all of the goals from that challenge, but I really liked the read an hour and a half a day piece of it, especially because in the 75 days booked format, the idea is that you would read for 2 45-minute sessions with at least one of those being away from your bed. So if you're someone who reads in bed a lot, you're not doing all of your reading for the day in bed. And I really like that format. I think that's a very manageable amount of reading to do in a day, and I like the idea of breaking it up so it's not like I have to sit down for an hour and a half and read straight through, which I think can be hard if you have a short attention span, which some days I definitely feel like I do. So I want to adapt just that piece of 75 days booked and do an hour and a half of reading a day, potentially in 2 45-minute sessions, but it could also just be in an hour and a half straight if I'm feeling up to it that day. So I'm hoping that'll help me reach my 52 books in a year. As a part of that 52 books in the year, I also want to branch out a little bit and read more nonfiction and audiobooks because I haven't really been reading either of those lately, but I've been finding that the nonfiction and audiobooks I've read recently have been really great, and I really like that audiobooks have allowed me to continue reading while also working in some of my other tasks, including chores, things I need to actually get done, but also I've been doing some weaving lately, and I've been finding I really enjoy listening to an audiobook while I'm weaving, which I knew I'd done before and enjoyed, but I want to do more of that in 2026, especially just because I want to weave more in 2026, and reading an audiobook will help me buy a little more time for my crafting. So my plan is to try and read one nonfiction and one audiobook per quarter, which I think is, again, a very doable number. It's enough to challenge me to pick those up more often without being an overwhelming number that I'm trying to achieve. So I'm hopeful that I can manage that. I tried to do one nonfiction a month this year in 2025, and that didn't really work out for me. I kind of fell off the cliff with that one right off the bat. So I'm hoping kind of spreading it out to once a quarter will make it a little bit easier, and then hopefully I can actually pick up more than that, but I won't feel obligated to do more than that. I do have one last kind of area of reading I'd like to branch out more into, but I'm not quantifying this one. I just want to read more science fiction in 2026. I didn't want to put a number with this because I do read some science fiction already, but it's more that I want to be conscious of including more science fiction in my TBRs and actually picking up the science fiction I put on my TBRs. I was really noticing this year when I looked at the Goodreads Choice Award nominees for science fiction that I had heard of almost none of them. So it's a genre where I feel like I just don't have as much knowledge and I haven't read as much, and it's something that I want to try and dig more into because I think I really like sci-fi, and I'm still learning which subgenres of sci-fi I really enjoy. So I feel like it's a good opportunity to do some exploring. But I didn't want to quantify that. It's more just for me to have in the back of my mind. Moving on from my quantity and quality goals, I also want to focus on reducing my owned TBR. I keep a spreadsheet that tells me every single book that I own, and I have way too many of them unread. So this is something I've been trying to do over the last couple of years, and I've started to see some success kind of in 2024 to 2025. My overall owned TBR number has been dropping, and so these goals are intended to help me maintain that momentum. So the first one is just that I want to read more from the library. I want to use that resource more. We have a really great library where I live, and I want to make sure that I'm going fairly regularly and actually making use of my access to the library. So again, that's not what I'm quantifying. I just want to make sure that I'm thinking about that, keeping it in the back of my mind before I buy a book, checking to see if my library has it and getting it that way instead. I also want to try and buy fewer books in the year and make sure I'm reading more of what I actually bring into my library. So that's sort of a two-sided goal. For buying fewer books, I want to try and buy fewer than I bought in 2025. I don't have that final number yet because Christmas hasn't actually happened yet, so I anticipate I'll be getting at least 1 or 2 books at Christmas, and I will, after Christmas, take that final number and set that as like my cap for 2026. I think I'm currently sitting at like 54 books added to my TBR, or not to my TBR, but like to my library overall in 2025, so I suspect that number will be somewhere between 55 and 60, and I want to make that my cap for 2026. I don't want to bring more than that number of books into my library. So we'll see how that goes for me. I think it'll be a challenge, but I think it'll be good for me to have a like cap on my spending in that way, where I'll have to be really cognizant of how many books I brought in and try to choose things that I really, really care about to add to my library. The other half of it is I want to try and read more of the books that I'm actually buying. So I'm going to carry over a goal that I had in 2025 that I have very nearly reached, but not quite. So in 2025, my goal was to read 60% of the books that I purchased in the year. And this I borrowed from Leanne over at Literary Diversions. She does a bingo board from hell every year, which I think is so cool. It would be overwhelming for me, but like the creativity that she puts into it is incredible. And she has been doing a like read X% of books I purchased in the year goal for the last few years. I believe 60% is what she's settled on within the last couple of years. So I tried it this year and I really liked it. I really liked that it made me focus on bringing books in that I thought I was going to read soon and then trying to actually prioritize them. I've come very close. I think I'm settling out at like 55-ish percent, 50%. So I've gotten pretty close. I would like to actually hit 60% in 2026. And I think that combined with having a set number of books I want to bring into my library will hopefully help me read more of the stuff that I'm adding to my library in the year that I'm adding it to my library. So I won't have as many things that just kind of like sit around and become TBR veterans. I'm hopeful that those things together will help me reduce my overall own TBR, and someday I'd like to get it back down to a reasonable number where my TBR isn't necessarily outside of the amount I could read in a single year. We're a ways away from that at the moment, but I think that is something that I could achieve in the next few years. So moving on from reading entirely, I want to talk very briefly about my content goals for the year. For YouTube, my goal is pretty much the same as what it's been the last few years. I want to be more consistent with posting content. I did reduce the number of videos I'm posting earlier this year, earlier in 2025, just because I had gotten a little overwhelmed and I had made my hobbies too much of a chore for myself and I needed to take a step back. So I want to make sure I'm still posting consistently, so I want to continue posting my 1 video a week. I might increase back to 2 videos a week depending on whether my reading picks back up through 2026, but I'm going to make that decision later. I also want to vlog more because I really enjoy vlogging, and I forgot how much I liked it until I started vlogging again for Reindeer Readathon. So I want to do that more in the new year and use that as a space to talk about whatever I'm currently reading, because I usually have a lot of thoughts, and I think that'll be good instead of making my friends and family listen to me ramble at them for hours at a time. And then finally for YouTube, I'd like to reach 400 subscribers. This is pretty much what I've done for my goal for the last several years. It's just whatever the next 100 mark is, that's my goal. I'm currently sitting at 333. It looks like that's probably going to be the number of subscribers I have going into 2026. And I'm so grateful for every single one of my subscribers, everyone who has joined me for this journey along the way. It's really been fun to have this as a space to be creative and to talk about the things I'm reading. So again, I don't have to talk my family and friends' ears off all of the time. And I'm just so grateful for everyone who even clicks on one of my videos. So all that to say, thank you for watching. I do really appreciate it. And I'm hopeful we can hit 400 in 2026. This sounds like I'm finishing the video. I'm not quite. My last My last thing I want to talk about is Twitch. That's something I've started in 2025. I'm going to continue on in 2026. I took a kind of accidental hiatus with the holidays and with travel and stuff happening here at the end of the year, but I want to return to it with like renewed vigor in 2026. So my aim for 2026 is to stream twice a week, probably on Mondays and Wednesdays with the occasional weekend stream. And I'd like to reach 100 followers. I think that would be very cool. I'm currently sitting at like 66 or 67, and I've been having a lot of fun streaming. I just haven't done it much in the last few weeks because of life getting in the way. But I've been having a lot of fun with that. It's really encouraged me to play more video games and actually tackle my backlist on Steam. So it's been a really good time, and I'm also grateful for everybody who's watched me over there. I'm also wanting to do more reading sprints because I started that and then they kind of fell off. But I think that would be fun to bring back in the new year. Those are all of my goals for 2026, and I'm really hoping that these are going to help me be more consistent and be more adventurous and just to feel better about the way that I'm spending my time. Let me know down in the comments below if you have any big goals you're trying to achieve in 2026 of any kind, and I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting at least once a week, hopefully continuing to do that for the foreseeable future, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.